Depending on where you're joining from, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Farah Mohamed, and for those who do not know me, I'm a former refugee from Uganda who came to Canada when I was 2. For the past 25 years, I've worked alongside politicians, entrepreneurs, business leaders, philanthropists, and changemakers, including Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai. Regardless of their path, they were and continue to be driven by a commitment to social change. It's my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this 2-day summit and to welcome you here today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First, if you're having any trouble at all with the technology, click on Need Help button on the top of the platform webpage. Second, we are pleased to provide simultaneous interpretation in English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and American Sign Language. Third, please explore the Summit platform website. You will be able to locate the Summit agenda by visiting the Together for Learning website. You can find lounges where you can start conversations with others attending the Summit. And there's a global chat function where you can engage with other participants from around the world. It's also where we will post up-to-date important information, so it really is the place to go. And for additional information, check out the Resource Center. Finally, we want people to know what we're discussing, so please share what we're talking about on social media. Use the hashtags, #TogetherForLearning and #Ensemble pour l'apprentissage. Over the course of the next day and a half, we're going to hear from an incredible group of global leaders who have come together to explore ways to transform education for refugees and other forcibly displaced and host community children and youth. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite our host, Canada's Minister for International Development, the Honourable Harjit S. Sajjan, who will open up our summit. Minister, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Let me begin by acknowledging that I'm here speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Hello and welcome to the Together for Learning Summit. As Minister of International Development, education is a priority for me because at the end of the day, education is about hope and opportunity. Yet conflict, the climate crisis, natural disasters, and COVID-19 have disrupted the education of millions of learners, millions of children from Syria to Venezuela, Afghanistan, and now Ukraine. And the situation is dire, and the time to act is now. Today, I'm kicking off the summit by announcing $67.2 million on projects that focus on education and learning for refugee and displaced children and youth, by providing support to national governments who are working to build more resilient education systems and Canadian civil society who are working directly with local refugee organizations to deliver programs. We can ensure that there are better education opportunities for all children and youth. And this work for with young people who have experienced displacement is a core element of the Together for Learning campaign and this summit. Around the world, millions of children are not developing the essential skills and knowledge they need to succeed. In fact, nearly half, that's 48% of school-age refugee children are out of school. And this disproportionately affects women and girls. Adolescent girls living in conflict-affected countries are 90% more likely not to be in secondary education than elsewhere. We must come together to support ministries of education, especially those in countries that host refugees and displaced people, to develop and deliver safe, equitable, inclusive education. Now, this morning we are here from we're going to hear from 3 women experts who have experienced displacement and are now leading work on priority themes identified by the youth for this summit: inclusive and equality education, gender equality, and technology and innovation. And throughout the summit, we will explore these themes together, informed by experiences from our youth delegates and others. So I want to thank our summit partners, the Canadian International Education Policy Working Group, the World Refugee Migration Council, and the World University Services Canada for their work in making this event happen. And a special thank you to the campaign's Refugee Education Council, whose members have played a huge role in shaping our agenda for the next 2 days. Partnerships like these are key to our success. It is why we have convened youth leaders, government, civil society organizations, and global education stakeholders. Together, we can ensure no one is left behind. So I look forward to hearing from the youth over the next 2 days. The only way we can ensure that our efforts make an impact is to ensure that our voices are heard and the support we provide meets their needs. We all share a commitment and passion to make sure that every child everywhere has an opportunity to reach their dreams, an opportunity to have a safe, equitable, inclusive, and quality education. All of us share a commitment and a passion to build a better future. And by working together, we can do it together. And now, if we can turn our attention to a short video that celebrates the first year of the Together for Learning campaign. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Minister Sajan, thank you so much for opening our summit and for your announcement. Amplifying the voices of displaced children and youth is at the heart of the Together for Learning campaign. The Together for Learning Summit, engaging displaced youth to transform education opportunity for meaningful dialogue and collaboration, focused on ensuring that no child is left behind. So much work has gone into the preparation for the summit. The Refugee Education Council have developed and refined a youth manifesto, which includes through 4 regional dialogues with youth in the Middle East, East Africa, West Africa, and Latin America. Global Affairs Canada has met with other governments, international organizations, and civil society partners to review the manifesto and discuss ways to respond to the call to action and bring these messages into the global dialogue. Diverse partners, experts, advocates have all been engaged in developing a dynamic program over the next 2 days that puts the voice of youth and people with lived experiences of displacement at the very center of the program. Decided in collaboration with youth leaders, this summit is guided by 3 main themes that the minister alluded to. The first theme is inclusive and high-quality education. Theme 2 focuses on gender equality, and the third theme addresses technology and innovation. We'll start by exploring these three key themes, which will set us up nicely for the next part of the next 2 days. The session will be followed by 2 closed-door meetings, heads of international agencies and civil society representatives, to discuss calls to action from youth leaders. Please stay tuned today and tomorrow, as there are many engaging events with youth leaders and Canadian and international partners. A reminder, the full agenda is listed on the Together for Learning Summit website. While the challenge of quality education for all is significant, I'm confident that by the end of the summit, we will be one step closer to ensuring quality education and lifelong learning for all children, especially refugees and other forcibly displaced host community children. So let's get started. We have an incredible lineup of Insight speakers. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our first Insight speaker, Hawa Abdi. Hawa's passionate advocacy for girls' education, gender equality, and youth empowerment was born from her own experiences as a refugee in Kenya. After finishing high school in Kakuma refugee camp, Hawa moved to Turkey to attend university. She recently returned to Kakuma to set up SheLeads, a leadership and mentorship program for young girls and women in Kakuma. Hawa, welcome. We're so delighted to have you with us. Over to you. If you're there, over to you. We're ready to hear from you. I think we're having a few technical difficulties. Okay. Is it possible that perhaps if we don't have... Okay. She's back. All right. So Hawa, are you with us? Maybe what we could do is perhaps if it makes sense, perhaps we can go to Shaza. Is Shaza with us? You know, these summits are great, but we rely on technology and sometimes it just does not come through. So maybe Shaza is ready to go. That's fantastic. Okay, let's go on to Shaza. And we'll come back to Hawa. Shaza, I'm thrilled to have you. Shaza Alrihawi is a Syrian refugee based in Germany. She's a human rights activist, a gender expert, and a leading advocate for refugee inclusion through her roles as the co-founder and member of multiple refugee-led initiatives. Shaza, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Good morning. Shaza, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, as well. I will speak briefly in 5 minutes about the gender equality in education. Actually, as the minister said before, the refugee in general are missing the schools and the education, and most probably the women and girls are the more the one who are out of the school in these days. Through our work, we saw that there is a lot of factors are playing a role why girls are out of the school, and this is what we are trying to do to focus on the reason and try to solve this problem. And through our work, we find out that the stereotyping and the traditional is the one of the factors. And what we need to do is to change this kind of mentality that the men are the breadwinners, so they should learn, they should educated, because then they have to find a work, while the woman is like just a housemaid or housewife, and she doesn't need this education. And that's why we are not able to invest also more money on her, because the financial situation is also play a role in this regards. So this is one of the factors that why girls are out of the school more than boys. The second one is actually the traditional, if we can say, because in some countries, as we talk about the MENA region and other part of the world, the women are not feeling safe traditionally to go outside. They will face a lot of harassment. They will face the rape. If we have such an LGBTIQ, other issues like if the girl had the period, that they will stop her going to school, because then what's happened if she's on her period and something happened in the school, the bullying as well, and then within the school is one of the factors. If the teachers are not female, sometimes the children are not able to be out to the school. So also this is one of the narrative that should be changed to have a better education. Third, I think the curriculum itself is divided, and this is no gender equality sensitive within it. So always we refer to boys have some professionals being soldiers, being an engineer or whatever, while the girl should be at home helping her mother or being a teacher. So also the language of this educational system, it should be changed as well to be also gender sensitive, if we can say. So many things should be changed to have better education, and we need to invest on that. This has not happened like from nothing. So states and other actors and NGOs and all of the policymakers should work together to ensure that the quality of the education is really gender sensitive, as we said, and to invest on this, to also have the awareness raising about this in general, and within the community, within the refugee community itself, within the host countries as well. Educate the teachers, regardless they are female or male, because we need to target everyone of the gender equality. It's not targeted for, it's not designed for women, because we are women, we know that. I think we need to educate the men, the people who are working, the staff who is working in the education. So we need also to raise this, the sensitivity of the gender issue. And then we have like qualified staff that who has been able to work to identify such a stuff within the education. Also, we need to have we need to use the sources within the refugee community. We have a lot of education stuff, like we have teachers, we have people who is really like the community itself, the religious leaders, the community leaders. Also, this is one of the target that we have to go and talk to them, to raise this issue and to help us when we target them to have more enrollment in the school, more than what we have so far. So I think in general we have to work on three issues. First, changing the narrative itself, because we need to change the narrative around the education and to have the gender equality at the heart of the policy making around the education. So this is one of the components. Second, we need to ensure that the materials of the educational and the staff and the system itself is really designed as gender sensitive. So we have gender sensitive material with no stereotyping, with nothing. We educate the teachers, and we have the community itself to work and play a role in that. And third, the funders, the money, the will, if we can say it, the will. If we are willing to do something as a policymakers, we will invest, we will find the resources. So I think this is also be a one recommendation, and the first recommendation that we need to work on it. Once we have the will to do something, we will find the solutions, we will find the ways to do so. So if we are willing really to have the educational system to be better, I think we can do something. As a final word, I will say we need to actually have the good practices. So also the showcase. The more that we show the case of girls who are really doing well, women who are achieving, like Malala and other examples, the more that we have, the more that we focus on, I think it's attractive to more girls to be there. So showing resilience, showing good examples is also one of the ways that we are encouraging and improving the education. I will stop here for respecting the 5 minutes of mine, and I will give floor to my colleagues back. Thank you.
Shaza, thank you so much. You know, when you weave all of those issues together, it really helps people to understand how complicated it is, but in some ways how easy it can be. And you reminded me when you were talking about the inclusion of men, how Zia Yousafzai really sort of made that his mission. So thank you so much. When you talked about Will, I could hear your determination in your voice. So I'm So thankful for you to share with us what you see as the priorities and how to actually go away and attack getting more women and girls educated. I believe we now have a connection with Hawa. So Hawa, if you're there, we're going to give you the mic. Please, Hawa, the floor is yours. Hopefully the connection works. Hi, Hawa, we see you. Please go ahead. Oh, and we've lost Hawa again. She's making this really interesting because when she does come on, here we go, there we go. We see Hawa again. Hawa, can you hear us?
Can you all hear me?
Hawa, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Hawa Abdi. I'm a Somali refugee from Kenya. I was born in a refugee camp, Marafa, in the coastal part of Kenya, where my family later moved to Dadaab, and we later moved to Kakuma, where I attended my primary education. Who lived in the camp, I faced many challenges as a student who wanted to achieve her goals. My dream was always to be the voice of young girls and women in the camp who are facing the same challenges, and we want to come up with a solution to help them to overcome those challenges. We all know that not everyone in the camp who can afford the scholarship or who can afford to come study outside of the camp. But what we are really hoping is to have those type of education that we cannot have out in the camp. As a refugee girl who went to school in Kakuma, I've experienced the need for exclusive education as well as inclusive classroom, where every child gets the diverse education, social, sex education, and communication skills. What we really lack in the camp is the first thing that we lack is sexual education. And that's one thing that really leads to young girls, early pregnancy, early marriage, and in our schools will enable every child to expose more opportunities in the schools in the camp. More children, as we know, really want to go to school and are really enrolled in schools, but the hope that they really want to have the same opportunity that every child outside the camp will have, but we cannot have it. Why? Lack of funds, lack of financial stability, lack of education from our own parents. The world we live in, people work with technology we don't have in the camps. People don't use technology in our camps. We don't use it. There's a cry in the camp. We really ignore that as well. Mental health is something that is very important, but we all skip. We say, okay, you get what? Just do this, just do that. And as a girl child who lived in the camp, nobody ever talked to me about a mental health. Everybody ignored it. I will go to my parents, I will go to my sisters, I will go to everyone, and everyone will be like, oh, it's normal thing. Just go, do something, go pray, and that is all. Lack of this, the youth, like it really made serious issues like early pregnancy and drug abuse. Young girls go into early pregnancy to the lack of sexual education in the schools. In December, we started a program that's called SheLeads Kakuma, which is a 6 mentorship program, advocacy mentorship program for young girls and women in the refugee camp. We carried out a consultation, we carried out a workshop for young girls, the age of between 17 to 24 years old from 7 different nationalities. The main challenges that we discussed in the workshop and in the consultation was one, limited opportunities. Not everyone has the same opportunity. We live in the same camp. We cannot get outside education, but still, people who live in the same area, in the same camp, we cannot have the same opportunity to go to the school in the camp. Classes are overcrowded in the schools. No textbooks, no technology, nothing. Sanitation is something else that we talked about. As a girl, we need to be sanitized. We need sanitation in our compound, but we lack that. Economy, cultural norms, social pressure, and the COVID-19 that really affected our schools and in the camp. We all know that Kakuma is a refugee camp that holds more than 200,000 people from different nationalities. And every child has the right to go to education. Every child has the right to go to school. But not everyone gets the same opportunity. We came up with some recommendation, and that we really hope equipment and books to enable girls to study at home, provide sexual education in schools, provide financial and digital skills, and boost access to mentorship programs in our schools. We really hope that we get those kind of help. Thank you so much. That's all I have to say.
Hawa, thank you so much. You talked about issues that you're right, people just don't talk about, and they don't talk about it freely. I want to congratulate you for everything that you've done and wish you well with SheLeads. We look forward to hearing more about that. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Leila Toplick. Leila has worked at the intersection of technology and society for over 2 decades. At NetHope, Leila leads strategic efforts focused on enabling global not-for-profits to develop and use AI in a responsible way in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Her passion for education and supporting refugee children and youth is rooted in her life experience as a teenage Bosnian war refugee in the mid-90s. Last year, she was named, listen to this, she was named 100 Brilliant Women in AI Ethics and served as an advisor to UNESCO's Global Declaration on Connectivity for Education. Leila, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Farah, and also thank you, Shaza and Hawa. And just like Shaza and Hawa, I am a former refugee, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today and to be taking the lead to kick off the third pillar that youth leaders have put forward, which is around education. I want to give you some context in terms of why I believe technology is important for education. I know from personal experience, first of all, as a former refugee and also as a teacher of refugees, and also my work at NetHope, that is a nonprofit consortium of 63 global NGOs, that education is critical to reversing the negative impact of displacement that Hawa and Shaza talked about, and empowering young people to create a better, more self-sufficient and sustainable futures for themselves, for their families and their communities. I've seen firsthand how education and training can play a key role in creating an environment where all young people can develop a sense of purpose, identity, and belonging. They can gain employable skills, and they can drive the change they want to see. But addressing the complex needs of displaced youth is something that no single organization or sector can do alone, nor will traditional ways of delivering education and collaborating get us there. So in order to transform education for displaced youth, which is what we're talking about over the next 2 days, we need to transform how we design and deliver digital learning, and also how we work together and partner with youth. I want to talk briefly about technology and education, or how we design and deliver digital learning. As a refugee and a teacher back in the mid-90s, the technology that was available then helped me see a life beyond the walls of the refugee camp in southern Hungary, and inspire my students and ultimately prepare for university and career in technology. Since then, of course, technology has evolved greatly and rapidly, and has played an important role in making education, employment, and other important services available to millions of people around the world, especially during COVID. And today, technology is critical to facilitating access to education for hard-to-reach learners, enabling knowledge sharing and collaboration, and also facilitating personalized and social learning. Now, technology is core to that. So more than ever, we actually need to be intentional and thoughtful in how we shape digital learning. So many youth are depending on it. And as mentioned earlier, millions are already behind. So what I want to share with you is 4 considerations for digital learning for all of us to keep in mind as we collaborate on the action agenda over the next 2 days and beyond. First, we need to center on digital inclusion by ensuring meaningful access to the internet, to power, and devices for all young people equally, for girls, for children with disabilities, for out-of-school youth. And Farah, as you mentioned, just 3 months ago, NetHope and a collective of organizations launched a global declaration on connectivity for education that was led by UNESCO and Dubai Cares, and we're working now to operationalize that declaration. Second consideration is to use digital to transform how young people experience learning, and also how learning is connected to real world opportunities like work. So it's urgent for us to transform learning from one size fits all, place and time constrained learning that happens potentially just in a classroom, to just in time, personalized learning that aligns with work opportunities. and also enables each individual to continually learn new skills anywhere and anytime. Technology can help us with that. And I believe more than ever, we actually need technology that builds our capacity to solve problems in the world and to thrive. Third consideration is that really, in addition to using digital as a tool to access and experience learning, we need to invest in digital skills like data and AI to enable youth to become creators and build technology solutions for the problems that they want to solve, just like I have. And that really requires us to engage youth as problem solvers and as decision makers, not just as passive users of the systems created by others. And then lastly, anything we do with technology must be designed in a responsible, ethical, and humane way. So that is to say, we need to innovate responsibly with technology. And there are a number of things to keep in mind here. I'll just mention a few. First, we need to meet youth where they are in terms of digital literacy, ensuring that they know how to navigate the internet responsibly and also interact with digital systems in a safe and productive way. It's important to also avoid over-reliance on machines in education by designing technology to actually augment the capacity of educators and to support learners where they are in their development, enhancing a social aspect of learning rather than making it an isolating experience that we saw during COVID. And it's important to use technology to open up access and opportunities rather than creating more closed off systems that potentially exclude and limit learning and growth. This, for example, could include ensuring that qualifications are portable and can transfer with youth at wherever they go. And then lastly, we need to be intentional about protecting learner and educator data. While data can improve teaching and learning through real-time feedback, it can also be misused and abused. So if there's one thing that you take away from this is that transformation of education for displaced youth is going to be as effective and beneficial as our ability to design and use technology in an inclusive, empowering, and responsible way. Over to you, Farah.
Wow, you gave us a lot to think about. I want to reflect on one thing. You used the word empowerment, and that's so powerful because none of us could ever imagine our day without technology. And so we should not even try to imagine that refugees, displaced, would be able to lead their lives without it as well. So I want to thank you very much. I want to learn more about what your organization does, and we'll have a chance to do that. So Leila, Shaza, and Hawa will be with us a little longer. So we'll hear more from them shortly. But in the meantime, I'm pleased to welcome back Minister Sajjan to share his reflections on the themes that were highlighted by our Insight speakers. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to give a special thank you to our speakers. Provided some very inputs based on their experience, and that experience has informed their passion to make a difference in education and for everyone, especially for girls in refugee camps. And I was taking notes as they were speaking, and they listed out so many different challenges that the girls have to face, far more than what boys would have to go through. Everything from the insecurity that they see in the camps, and the period poverty that we see around the world that prevents the longer term education as well. How I talked about the mental health and not having the appropriate support, and how important that is to making sure that the mental health support is actually there. And she also emphasized the lack of sexual education, and how important it is to making sure that we maintain an emphasis on this. And Leila, also when it comes to using technology, how can we use responsibly? How to allow it to augment what we do? There's so many different experiences in that, and we need your experience. We need others as well. We need the younger folks to inspire them to be able to utilize their experience, their tools, so that we can do our job better. Ultimately, we want to give the resources to all of you, so that you can come up with the innovative solutions. You have the experience, and we want to empower you. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your experience, and thank you for making our world a better place.
Thank you, Minister. I recall the first time I met you and your passion and your commitment for including youth in decision making. It seems that your commitment has grown even stronger over time. As promised, we now get to pivot back to Leila, Shaza, and Hawa. Obviously, we're living in a world where COVID continues to have a profound impact on education. A couple of our speakers have already mentioned it. It's disrupted education for all learners, but has had an especially devastating impact on refugee and displaced learners by magnifying pre-existing inequities. You look at the impacts in particular on displaced girls and adolescent girls. We know that disruptions to girls' education in particular can lead to increases in gender-based violence, child early and forced marriage, early pregnancy, and premature transitions to work. All of these things can be avoided with proper access to education. Displaced learners often do not have adequate access to digital infrastructure, as we heard. Devices, connectivity, all these things that we take for granted have become more digitally excluded. In fact, UNHCR has estimated that globally, there were 78% of refugee children with limited to no access to learning opportunities during the pandemic-related school closures. That is a staggering number. So, to our insight speakers, from your perspective, and now we're going to have a conversation, from your perspective, as we look to recover from the pandemic, what specific actions are needed to rebuild education systems so that they are more accessible, they're gender responsive, and they're digitally inclusive? This is meant to be a conversation, as I said. So Leila, I'm going to ask you to kick it off. This is a conversation between the three of you. We have about 10 minutes, so please have at it.
Thank you for the question, Farah. So one of the areas that we've been working on at NetHope, and at NetHope we have about 20 years of experience in building coalitions and driving cross-sector collective action, is how we respond to the magnitude of need and the inequities that you talked about as a collective in partnership, and then what needs to transform in terms of how we work together and also how we partner in youth in order to do this effectively and with urgency. We're looking at how we actually shift from single actor, fragmented interventions, and transactional, situational partnerships to a more inclusive, complementary, co-creation focused and ecosystem-based approach that addresses some of these systemic challenges that we've been talking about and does that in partnership with youth. Now, how do we do that? So at NetHope, we've been working with our members, two of our members, Mercy Corps and War Child Holland, to develop a collective action framework. It's meant to be a practical resource that is designed to guide any type of coalition in how to effectively do three things: bring together a diverse set of stakeholders to co-create solutions and programs. And that includes private sector, government, UN and NGO agencies, as well as youth and local communities. So that second part is to engage in a meaningful partnership with youth and communities. And third, to innovate responsibly with technology. And this framework is currently available in draft format, and we're happy to share it. And we'll be sharing it more broadly after the global consultations. It also include 2 workshops with youth that we're conducting over the next 2 months. Over to you.
Shaza or Hawa, any comments on this question around COVID? Hawa, perhaps we have you on screen. Why don't we go to you first? Can you just give us your reflections on COVID, what you're thinking, what do you think needs to be done tangibly? Okay, we'll wait for Hawa to come back, and Shaza, we'll go to you, please. Oh, there we go. We got Hawa back.
Yes, I'm here. Okay. As I mentioned before about the program, what we did with the young girls in the Kakuma in December, we looked some recommendation. That is, first we said increase the number of scholarship opportunities available for girls and women. Before we go to the scholarship, we have to ensure that the mental health, the mental state of the young girls in the camp is stable.
Just bear with us. We've got some connection issues. We're very lucky to have Hawa for the time that we've had her. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go to Shaza and then we'll come back to Hawa. Hawa, we're going to go to Shaza really quickly and we're going to try to figure out your internet connection. So Shaza, please, over to you.
Yeah, actually, during the COVID, and to continue what already Leila mentioned, that the education were stopped almost because of that. So what we did, we used the technology as one of the supporters. So people and children are able to have their classes online. But the problem that we faced during the COVID-19 is the digitalization literacy. So people are not aware how to use, like if they are lucky, to be honest, if they have the connectivity, they have the devices, they have all of this. Again, we have a more percentage within women and female to be literacy than the male. So this is one of the components. And what we did in our community, in our organization, we tried to give some kind of like basic information about how to create email, how to use the Zoom and platform where they can have their study. Even if we talk about the vocational training, the language courses for people in the host community, so that they also have to use their platform, the Zoom and other platform to continue their study. And there where we find the struggle. And women are not able; they don't know how to use this and what they have to do, how to open and turn on and turn off the camera, what they have to do, and so many things. And this is what we are trying to support in. Actually, also the financial issue. The financial issue is one of this. And again, women and girls are more or less to have the fund comparing to male. Like if I have two daughters and one boy, mostly women, the family will give the new tablet for their boys because it's more important. This is how we think about it. Like he is more important to get educated than girls. And this is where we tried also to support in. So we raised the awareness about the role of the girl if they are educated, how they can build their better future. And we give them examples of how people on move are losing their jobs, and the female became more breadwinner and the family supporter than men, because men cannot do other stuff rather than work, but women are learned to have more vocational training. She do sewing, she do cooking, so she is the one who is feeding the family during the move or the crisis situation. So this is what we try, like practically from our work, to enlighten while we're talking to the people during the consultation and workshops about how it's important to find job afterwards, to teach her children, to give them the better future, because this is what we are thinking about. And also we give them some information and we educate them because of the SGBV. As we all know, during the COVID-19, the SGBV, the sexual gender-based violence were increased, mostly because people are locked at the same place. So the perpetrator having more time or having more chances. And in addition to the increasing of the mental health situation, so many things played a role. So we have increased numbers of the SGBV. So what we do as well, we give them some information about how they use their phones to report such an issue and to protect themselves by using the information and by using the digitalization. I think it's all together. So we need to work all together on all platform, and it's not only by designing, but refugees and women and the targeted group should be part of all process of the the policy making, like from designing, implementing, and also evaluating. So this is how we believe,
Agreed.
like holistic approach is one component. I will stop here.
Great. Thank you very much. I really wish we had more time. I wish that Hawa's connection was better. But Minister, you, like me, sitting here, I'm taking tons of notes. And so I'm going to ask you to share your reflections on what you've heard and any final words. We would really like to understand how Canada is working to accelerate action for the most marginalized children as part of your COVID-19 response. So maybe I could get you to respond to that, and then we'll move on to the next section. Minister?
No, thank you. I mean, I'm here to also just intently listen to our panelists on their experience. And the only takeaway that I'll say is, for me, the pandemic has highlighted the weaknesses in society and globally in what we should have been focusing on. I think all of us had the desire, especially in Canada, putting the resources and leading the way on gender equality, education for girls in Canada. Um, but you've also having that voice, that experience, that lived experience is so important. It's one thing to have a great heart and wanting to make things right, but having that lived experience that all of you have talked about is critically important for people like us who are creating the policies and putting the right resources. We want to make sure that we have the right impact, and all of you have highlighted for us what is needed. And I'm just looking forward to today and tomorrow to learn and how it's going to inform our decision making. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shaza, Leila, Hawa, Minister Sajjan. You've started us off so well for the next 2 days. I look forward to getting on my little hub and connecting with all of you and learning more. So thank you so very much for starting us off in such an amazing manner. And we look forward to hearing and watching all of you do so much more than you've already done. To close this session, I'd like to welcome now Maryam and Nivaal Rehman. Maryam and Nivaal are twin activists, so you get double. They're journalists, filmmakers, co-founders of their nonprofit, the World With MNR, which uses storytelling, advocacy, and development projects to take action for climate justice, gender equality, and inclusivity. Some of their notable work includes their interviews with Malala Yousafzai when she was with Prime Minister Trudeau here in Ottawa. The sisters have worked with many international organizations and companies on initiatives to advance social good, including the UN Girl Up campaign, the Global Partnership for Education, and the UN Girls Education Initiative. It's my pleasure to now ask Maryam and Nivaal to take the stage.
Thank you so much, Farah, and thank you for having us today, everyone. We're honored to be here. My name is Maryam.
And my name is Nivaal.
To begin, we'd like to thank all of our incredible speakers this morning. It was so inspiring to hear from you. As the Together for Learning Summit kicked off, some of the major ideas that I drew from the event were that all refugees have the right to be protected, but after we get them to safety, refugees also have the right to inclusive and quality education, gender equality, and innovation, which are also the thematic areas that are the focus of this summit. We reiterate some of the points made by our fellow speakers when we say that the process of incorporating these elements into policy must be collaborative and especially include the voices of affected refugee youth.
This is why it's important to have spaces like this, where the voices of youth can be heard by leaders and help them develop policies such as creating more inclusive and equitable education curriculums and making sure that young people everywhere have access to them. We want to reiterate that this summit is an incredible opportunity for us to come together and amplify the voices of young people and what they envision as a more equitable future, particularly in relation to learning and education policy. We look forward to continuing to stay involved with the summit and hearing the Youth Manifesto on education for refugee and displaced learners as well.
As we end off here, we want to reiterate the importance of creating spaces for youth voices and also implementing the ideas of youth into policies.
As activists and GPE youth leaders ourselves, we have found that the fellow young people in our generation are dedicated to creating change and have the insights and expertise to inform transformative policies across a variety of issues that we care about or experience firsthand.
Thank you to the Together for Learning Summit organizers for providing this platform for youth throughout the summit, and we urge our leaders to listen to youth demands and implement their recommendations in the form of bold and brave policies that address the challenges and reflect the visions we collectively discussed throughout the summit. We will be staying tuned and looking forward to learning from our fellow changemakers about how we can make education accessible and equitable for refugee youth everywhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both. It's so nice to see you again, and congratulations on everything that you've done. So once again, thanks to everyone who's joined us. As you will note from the summit agenda, the next two sessions are by invitation only and provide the Refugee Education Council the opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue. The closed-door session is for the Ministers of Education and Ministers of International Development to join together to discuss and hopefully agree on their response to the manifesto to be shared at the end of the summit tomorrow. If you have not, now's your chance. Please do visit the Resource Center to learn more about the Refugee Education Council. And the 3 consecutive events will begin at 12:35, 1:45, and 2:55 Eastern Daylight Time. We will focus first on sharing the stories of some of the Refugee Education Council members, next on technology for education, and finally on Canadian leadership to improve access and quality education. The 4th side event, titled Inclusive Quality Education for Refugee and Displaced Youth, a dialogue with youth in Canada and around the world, is also scheduled to start at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. To join, please visit the Summit website and click on the Summit program. For my part, I look forward to welcoming you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to start the second day of the Together for Learning Summit. Thank you and enjoy.